Hey there, guys. You're right on time. So good to see you. Thanks, man. Good to see you too. No, not you. Them. My goodness, you are a handsome devil. Welcome to the Coffee with Indy. Welcome, friends, to Coffee with Indy, where your friends here at Indy break down a topic of interest to the energy storage world in 90 seconds each or less over a delicious cup of joe. Today's topic, the recent report from Arizona Public Service, or APS, on the APS McMicken Battery Fire. The question we'll answer is, what is the biggest takeaway from that report? First, a little background information. In March of 2017, APS, who is the largest electric utility in Arizona, commissioned two 2 megawatt hour battery energy storage systems to support regions of their electric distribution system that had a high amount of rooftop solar PV generation. A little over 2 years later after that commissioning, a 911 call came in reporting smoke near an APS electrical substation. Firefighters arrived on the scene expecting to find a brush fire, but instead realized they were dealing with a structure fire, one involving a containerized battery energy storage system. A hazmat team was dispatched to the site and procedures were followed with a perimeter set up around the battery system and periodic hazardous gas readings being taken. After it appeared that the smoke had stopped emanating from the battery system for a while, first responders moved in to visually inspect the system. They positioned a fire hose pointed at the main entry door of the system. This was a walk-in type enclosure that the battery system was installed within. And they opened the door to that enclosure to visually inspect the system. 3 minutes later, one firefighter lay 73 feet from where he was standing, and 3 other first responders were seriously hurt when explosive gases that had collected inside the enclosure ignited. A little over a year later, APS released an investigation report on this incident. Actually, several investigation reports have been released recently. So, our Coffee with Indy topic for today is, what is the biggest takeaway from these investigation reports? First up to answer is our man, John Mitchell. John, you have 90 seconds. Go!
So, my key takeaway from the McMicken APS fire report. So, the report, I think, kind of summarizes the contributing factors into 5. So, there's the battery cell failure, the fire suppression not being capable of dealing with the event, the lack of thermal barriers between cells and modules, the flammable off gases not being dealt with adequately, and then also the emergency response plan not being suitable. So a couple of those I have some comments on. So the increased barriers to prevent cell heat propagation is good in theory, but I find it is difficult. They do mention in the report that they want to avoid recommending solutions that would be cost prohibitive to the industry and to the technology, and I think that would stray into those territories. The biggest one for me, really, which I think is very important and it needs to be improved upon, is the off-gas ventilation and extraction in these kind of events again. So if you think about it, from the time the fire started to the time the first responders got there, those off gases are building up inside, basically turning that container into a giant bomb. Essentially, those gases could be just extracted in a more efficient way, and just preventing that kind of buildup of dangerous materials in there. I think that would go a long way to preventing something like this happening again. As well as that, there's the emergency response plan being slightly not fit for purpose here, and I think that probably was the case. You know, that door probably shouldn't have been opened when it was. I think it has improved since the system was installed, and now there's more procedures in place to deal with, you know, lithium-ion storage specific risks and stuff like that. So we have moved along in that sense, but it can always be better. And finally, I think something it's kind of touched upon in the report, but we deal with it here all the time with our own EMS is just monitoring to a much higher level of detail and kind of spotting ongoing trends in the performance of the system. So whether that be like deltas in cell temperature, cell voltages, just dangerous trends that you see in the performance of the system on an ongoing basis. I think proactively anticipating stuff like that. And just in general, yeah, I think yes on the venting the off gases, yes to improving the emergency response plan, and yes to just monitoring the performance and data more closely and trying to anticipate these things. So in general, yeah, it's a terrible event, and let's hope it doesn't happen again.
Good points, John, but holy cow, brother, you were way over on time. I agree with a few, and I have a different take on a few actually, but we'll get to that when my turn is up. Next up to take a crack at this one is our man Evan Turry. Evan, you have 90 seconds. Go!
This mug's for Mr. John Mitchell. Alright, there's a lot to cover with the McMicken event, so let's jump in. The first thing I want to say is I'm immensely sorry for everyone involved in the event, especially the first responders, so sorry for those involved. Okay, let's jump into takeaways. Takeaway number one is that outdoor enclosed energy storage systems are just less risky than the large building integrated systems. That's one of the takeaways with this event, because you had decent, standard compliant safety measures in place that operated, mostly correctly, mostly as they should have, and you still have a container that's a total loss. So take that to a building, you either have a total loss, which has happened, or if it's relegated to a subsystem, you still have residue, remediation, damage in a lot of the building. And second big takeaway is that this continues to make a good case for liquid cooled or other batteries that have embedded integrated thermal management systems. Even if you have a flame or something that ruptures heat, something that ruptures the thermal management system, you have an instant rapid cooling. These systems end up serving dual purposes. Third big takeaway is that insulation monitoring just needs to be well integrated into the controls and monitoring of these systems. In the case of the McMicken event, 35 minutes before the thermal runaway, there were noticeably lower insulation resistance measurements on the Bender 685s. So whatever your thoughts and conclusions on what caused the McMicken event, ground faults have been at the center of many BESS fires over the last decade. I have more, I'm sure I'm way over time, so I'll just go really rapid fire. Continuous gas monitoring is cheap and easy to integrate, so include it for several reasons, pre-event, post-event. Pretty much the same goes for operable ventilation. There's more, and there's a lot here, but I'll stop there. If you want to discuss more, reach out. Until then, enjoy your coffee.
Also good points, Evan, and also way over on time. That's all right. It was good stuff. I also have a lot to say on this one, so I fear I may be the pot calling the kettle black. So next up is yours truly, Eric Schrock. Eric, you have 90 seconds. Go! Wow, so many aspects on this one. There's a lot of very good information in the reports themselves. I highly recommend reading them if you're involved in any way in sourcing, designing, or operating battery energy storage systems. Overall, while I really like the discussion around better design practices and root cause prevention of cell-to-cell heat or fire propagation, the biggest takeaway for me was again the scenario of first responders arriving at the scene and having limited information or mechanisms at their disposal to deal with the battery fire. In this case, a few first responders commented they weren't even aware there was a BESS in their service territory at all. Now, it's easy to point fingers regarding communication, poor communication, or emergency response plans that weren't very good, but the reality is that even very well communicated and drafted procedures or plans are forgotten as the years go by. Should also be noted that the shortfalls here weren't so specific to the supplier of the BESS, who is AES, now known as Fluence. The system was designed in a pretty standard way for the time. But I think there are a few simple design features and practices that I've learned from this that I think could have helped prevented the injuries sustained by first responders. Since I'm on the clock, I'm going to machine gun rattle off a few, those being: 1, an information station at the site where first responders can easily access information. 2, an extended runtime or alternate power source for controls and monitoring equipment. 3, I think a very obvious one, explosive gas monitoring within the systems. 4, a ventilation means, which needs to be coordinated with the fire suppression or protection systems. 5, a deflagration or pressure relief panels. And 6, one I'm a big fan of, is externally accessible dry pipe connections. Very simple, very cheap. Again, I'd like to see those on more systems. On a different note, I really like the move towards more modular, outdoor rated battery rack designs which mitigate multiple risk factors. I think we're about to see much more of this, with Tesla leading the way to some extent, and others like CATL releasing some pretty slick and well-priced designs as of late. Again, I'm 100% for preventing a fire from ever starting. But in conclusion, the biggest takeaway for me was equipping systems with several simple and cheap features that aid first responders should Murphy's Law strike. Alright friends, that's nearly a wrap. This has caused me personally to reevaluate design practices in the projects we're involved with. Modern batteries are an absolute marvel and have so much to offer. We just need to ensure solid safety features in each and every system deployed. This was a horrible, horrible event where real people got really hurt. As tragic as it was, an even bigger tragedy would be not to put all the lessons learned into practice. If you want to chat more about this topic, our energy management system, the Indy EMS, or just talk storage shop, hit us up. We'd love to connect. Okay, my friends, it's that time. Remember, today is the day, the time is now. Now let's get back to work.
Drop it in my face.